Howdy everyone, and welcome to my lens testing laboratory. It is mostly out of focus today because, well, it's all so secret and sophisticated that if you saw any of it, I'd obviously have to kill you. So you finally took the plunge and bought one of Fuji's X system mirrorless cameras. It looks beautiful, it has tons of handy controls to get used to, and it cost you a fair bit of money. It came with a little zoomable kit lens, which is nice and small, but what's the next step from there? What lenses are out there which could take your Fuji photography game to the next level? It used to be the case that your low budget lens options were quite limited on the Fuji system, but that has really changed over the last couple of years. So let's go on a whistle-stop tour of 4 different directions you could go in upgrading your kit lens. By the way, you can find links to full reviews of each of these camera lenses down in the description below. Firstly, why upgrade in the first place? It could be that you don't really need to. A little zoomable kit lens, say Fuji's 15 to 45mm, is portable, lightweight, and can be reasonably sharp when you stop down its aperture to f8 or so, which does make it useful for landscape or cityscape photography. But that 15 to 45mm zoom range, while offering you quite a nice wide angle, doesn't zoom in very far at all, and so your first avenue might be to increase your zoom range with a super zoom lens. You have a few options from Fuji themselves here. For example, the 16 to 80mm f4 has a great zoom range and lets in a bit more light than your normal kit lens, so it's fun to use and quite handy, but be warned, it's expensive and it's not actually the sharpest lens in the world when you zoom in. Fuji also make an 18 to 135mm lens, giving you even more zoom range. Now that is a high quality lens, but again, really quite expensive for what you're getting. If you want some extreme zooming capability, then Tamron have just released an incredible 18 to 300mm super zoom lens, whose zoom range blows those expensive Fuji zoom lenses out of the water. However, the drawback of having a zoom range that spectacular is that the lens's image quality tends to be lower. They're just not as sharp, and also the lens itself is a lot bigger. But still a tempting lens to own, as you'll never need a separate telephoto lens with that one. Alright, that's your first avenue, increase your zoom range. Your second avenue is to upgrade to a lens that has a brighter maximum aperture, which means it can let in more light for shooting indoors and in darker situations, and also get you more out of focus backgrounds for a beautiful 3D effect. And you have 2 options here, both from Fuji themselves. Firstly, their original kit lens, the XF 18 to 55mm. Now this older lens doesn't really improve on your zoom range very much, but its maximum aperture of f2.8 at the wide end and f4 when you zoom in means that it lets in about twice as much light as your 15 to 45mm kit lens, while remaining nice and small. What's more, the build quality of this lens is gorgeous actually. It feels really tough and metallic, actually one of my favourite little lenses of all time. But if you are after a new copy of it, not a second-hand copy, then it's expensive. And your second option is the Fuji XF 16 to 55mm f2.8. Now, this is the zoom range for Fuji owners with deep pockets. It is their top-of-the-line professional zoom lens. It has a very handy zoom range of 16 to 55mm that covers most things that you would want, a maximum aperture that stays at f2.8 throughout the whole zoom range, meaning it can be useful for portrait photography. It's fantastically sharp as well, and again, it has nice build quality, although I actually preferred the more metallic build quality of the 18 to 55mm lens I mentioned before. The drawbacks of the 16 to 55 are completely obvious: its price and its size. That thing is enormous. Some good news for Fuji shooters though is that Tamron have started making lenses for Fuji X mount now, so their 17 to 70mm f2.8 lens for the Sony system may be coming out soon on Fuji, which combines good image quality, a nice maximum aperture and a great zoom range, so let's hope that one comes out on Fuji X. Keep an eye out. Okay, that was your second avenue. Your third option is to get a prime lens. Now, prime lenses do not zoom in and out. They are stuck, giving you just one field of view, so choose the right angle. But they can often be smaller than a zoom lens with sharper image quality and, more importantly, a nice bright maximum aperture, say f2 or even f1.8 or f1.4. That means they let in lots of light into your camera, making it much easier to shoot in darker situations and much better for getting, as I mentioned before, out of focus backgrounds in your images. Nice. Fuji and other manufacturers make a huge number of different prime lenses. They are really popular for photographers who want to get a bit more creative in their work. Take a look in the Fuji lens playlist on my channel for a whole load of them. But right now, I'll show you a few that are particularly good value for money. My favourite by far is the Fuji XC 35mm f2. That thing is very small, lightweight, has a very low price, but is also very sharp. Its focal length of 35mm means that it's not too wide, but not too telephoto, just right for a variety of everyday photography, and its maximum aperture of f2 means it lets in at least about 4 times more light than a 15 to 45mm kit lens. This 35mm lens should be top of your list, I reckon, but there are plenty of others out there. If you want more dramatic images with even more out of focus backgrounds, then Fuji also make this little XF 50mm f2 lens. Much more expensive, but even higher quality than the 35, and its tighter image will be much more useful for portrait and other subject photography. Both Viltrox and Sigma make third-party autofocus lenses for Fuji cameras, all with extremely bright maximum apertures of f1.4, making them really creative yet affordable lenses, so look out for them. Sigma have their 16mm, 30mm and 55mm lenses, and the 16 and 56mm lenses are particularly sharp with excellent build quality. Viltrox make autofocus 23, 33 and 56mm f1.4 lenses too. Those Viltrox lenses are a little less expensive than the Sigma options, but a little less sharp as well. Viltrox also make a very nice portrait lens for the Fuji system, with their 85mm f1.8 lens offering great image quality at a reasonable price for anyone who wants a really tight image. It's also worth mentioning that other manufacturers, such as Tamron and Sigma, have a catalogue of their own camera lenses, which, although not yet released on the Fuji system, may or may not find their way onto X-mount cameras one day. So keep an eye on this channel and I'll try to keep you updated. Fuji make a whole bunch more prime lenses which are worth checking out, and my recommendation is to figure out your favourite focal length by experimenting with your zoomable kit lens and choosing a lens that has the field of view that you like the most. And finally, if you're looking to really save money, then there are also a lot of manual focus lenses out there from China, all of which are very cheap but also of mixed quality. Now, I always state at the beginning of my lens reviews whether or not a particular lens is available on Fuji X mount. Most of the cheap manual focus lenses are, so that's one option for you if you fancy your hand at trying manual focus. Well, that was your third avenue, prime lenses. The final option for you, I think, is to grab an ultra-wide angle lens. Now, these lenses go much wider than your everyday kit lens, although admittedly your 15 to 45mm lens, if that's what you've got, does go pretty wide. Ultra-wide angle lenses are enormously fun to use and useful for landscape photography and for shooting indoors in big cathedrals or churches or just anywhere else that's big. Fuji don't really make a low budget ultra wide angle lens. They only have their rather expensive 10 to 24mm f4 lens or their incredibly wide 8 to 16mm lens, both of which are admittedly of good quality, although that 10 to 24mm lens does have some soft image corners. But again, third-party manufacturers are coming to the rescue. Samyang make a very nice and very popular 12mm f2 lens, which combines an ultra-wide angle with a very bright aperture. Some people really enjoy using it for astrophotography as it lets in so much light. On the Fuji system, this lens comes in both autofocus and a cheaper manual focus variety. If you're looking for a really wide angle, then Chinese manufacturer Laowa make an awesome little 9mm lens. It has fantastic image quality, although the corners of your images look a little dark with this lens. And bear in mind, that's a manual focus lens only. And finally comes the Viltrox 13mm f1.4. Okay, this is not the widest angle lens out there, but its maximum aperture of f1.4 is incredibly bright, giving you lots of creative opportunities. It is an autofocus lens and it is sharp, so that is one great option I highly recommend. So you have lots of options for upgrading your Fuji kit lens. Which of those 4 directions are you going to go in? Let me know in the description below, and ciao for now.